Welcome back, everyone, to another university segment here at REIMAGINE 2020 V2. I'm your host, Roshan Mirajkar. I'm the University Program Assistant Director here at MouseBelt, and I'm really excited to have some of our returning guests from the Midwest Blockchain Consortium. I'm going to have everyone go around and introduce themselves. Great to have you all here.
Great to be here. I can kick us off. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashton Barger. I am currently a recent graduate of Miami University of Ohio, where I was the past president of the club. Jack here is the new president. He'll intro himself soon, but I have recently started a job with a company called Red Ventures, where I'm doing some SEO, and so that's been very exciting. But on the blockchain side of things, co-founded a blockchain consultancy about 1.5 years ago with Jack, and so we've been doing some great development projects there. Currently operating as a CEO of that, and then obviously we're here today to talk about the Midwest Blockchain Consortium. Currently I'm heading it up as the president, so very excited to be talking about that today and going into our current and future initiatives.
All right, I'll go next. Thanks, Ashton. So my name is Alec Shaw. I'm a recent graduate and an employee of Marquette University. During my time as an undergrad, I started what was originally a blockchain club for just some people that were excited to chat about basically what shitcoin was going to go to the moon. And then after the correction in 2017 and a couple of successful conferences, most of our student engagement was gone, but we had tons of corporate engagement. So we spun up a consulting arm, and now that consulting arm lives on at Marquette, and Marquette's a member of the Midwest Blockchain Consortium.
Hey, thanks, Alec. Hello, everyone. My name is Zain Habib. Sorry, give me 1 second. Are we good? Yeah, my name is Zain Habib. I'm actually a senior at Indiana University studying finance and technology management. And so my story kind of goes back to sophomore year of college when me and a couple of friends of mine started Blockchain at IU, which is IU's first, blockchain student org. And we went through a very similar path that Alec did, where we spun up this amazing organization that had, I think, over 50 to 75 members until that 2017 correction, the big correction that kind of took people away, brought some new people in. It was a bit of a time for us. And so since then, we've been able to do a lot of things, like stand up an entire online course, which MouseBelt really helped us out with, and then going to conferences and attending hackathons and things like that. It's been really quite a wild ride. So this is MBC has been a huge next step for us, and for me personally, I'm director of corporate outreach there, and so we're excited to see where this goes next.
Awesome, Zain. Great to be on with you again, obviously. So, hey everyone, my name is Adam Patel, and I'm the president and founder of Blockchain at LUC, Loyola University of Chicago's Blockchain Club. I actually worked on launching it with Gerado, who he will intro himself soon. So I've been, working on blockchain at LUC for about 2 years now. I'm a third-year student, so my freshman year kind of went out, tried to get that thing launched. Very bureaucratic process. Ended up launching last semester. And then right before our first event, everything went online. So we didn't get to launch last semester. So now we actually just had our organization fair just today. And we got, we're starting to get some members to be interested, and we're, slowly focusing on weathering this entire virtual world that we have to be in and kind of gaining as many members as we could. So Gerard and I have been working on that a lot. Other than leading the club and spreading awareness of blockchain technology, we partnered with MBC, Midwest Blockchain Consortium, and have been working with them and trying to get that off the ground. Other than that, studying computer science, I intern at Volt Capital, which is a venture fund, a crypto venture fund based out of San Fran, and we're making like early investments into a bunch of crypto startups. So that's been pretty cool lately.
I'll just jump in and go right here. Hi, I'm Jack Gilcrest. I'm the current president of the Miami University Blockchain Club. I'm in my 4th year studying computer science. Then a little bit more about me. As Ashton mentioned, I run Blocks Consulting with him as the Chief Technical Officer. And this summer had the very exciting opportunity to build a full-fledged decentralized application for a client. As for Miami University Blockchain Club, we've actually been really kind of seizing the opportunity of everything going online as a club based around online technology. It's really kind of been kind of fortuitous for us. We've been trying to target all of the infrastructure that students are using for online classes and kind of weaving our way into that, and just trying to present ourselves as a great opportunity for students who have no other options because they're stuck at home to get involved and advance their careers. So it's been going very well for us so far.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Gerardo. I'm a senior at Loyola University. I'm studying accounting and finance, and I am the treasurer at Blockchain at LUC. Like Adam had mentioned before, we started this club right before COVID, so we're kind of just figuring out how we can reach out to students and see what their general interest is as far as blockchain goes, and how we could draw them together so we could have this community at Loyola University Chicago, since we're the first club that deals with blockchain technology there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you all for giving kind of a blurb about what you all have been working on in your background. I've talked to many of you multiple times, and it's great to see that every time I talk to you all, you're working on some sort of new initiative or even teaching others, which is great. Before we get started into a lot of deeper dive into some interesting questions, Ashton, why don't you let everyone know what exactly the Midwest Blockchain Consortium is, and even from the time that I first knew about it, I know you all are working on some brand new initiatives and growing the organization.
Yes, for sure. Happy to do that. So we've kind of been talking about the Midwest Blockchain Consortium for a while now. We originally tried to do our first events back in the spring. Obviously, we kind of know how those times went. So we're originally kind of doing a pitch competition based around the Milwaukee Blockchain Conference that Alec was putting on up with Marquette there. And so, as that kind of derailed a little bit, we looked into what ways we could, shift online and shift kind of what we were focusing on. And that's kind of where we got some more ideas of putting a structure around this organization. And so, we've been meeting, we've been talking for a little over like a year now, really just figuring out, what's a really good structure for this? What are we going to focus on? Who are we going to partner with? Who are we going to really try to help? And so what we've kind of come together on is really, we want students to be able to find and get the jobs in the blockchain industry that they deserve, and really to help them fuel their career to get there while they're a student. And so some initiatives we're working on is trying to give entry level like consulting opportunities to really help them understand, but also help different companies understand what the technology is, and then give them projects to work around to really fuel their development with blockchain technology. Then through that, we're doing online events. The first one is going to be our second version of the virtual blockchain conference, and we're going to structure that a little bit more around recruiting as well. And so giving students the opportunity to connect with specific companies in the space and see what opportunities they can get there. And then from there, looking into furthering education initiatives, specifically around the Midwest, to help not only Midwest students, but Midwest companies to really understand blockchain and implement it into their different use cases.
Yeah, awesome. And I think it's really important work what you all are involved in. It's kind of like creating a hub, a resource hub, combining different organizations where people in your region can kind of go to you all to run events and work on interesting projects. So just an open-ended question for everyone to get an idea of, I know you all are kind of in the same region, but have you all experienced any differences depending on where you are as far as even the whole COVID situation? I know many of you are returning to school, so has your region kind of affected your work in blockchain or even in general? What are anyone's thoughts on this? Anyone can just jump in.
I can speak real fast. So we own a consulting practice at Marquette, although in order to feed our talent pipeline, we host a lot of in-person events. particularly around education, kind of networking, kind of social events, particularly just getting like-minded people in the same room to connect and collaborate, to start building exciting projects. And with COVID, that was ripped out from underneath us. So like March 15th or so, which was 2 days after I had to cancel the conference that we had worked on for months, which was super unfortunate. We had to rapidly pivot, and I grabbed some speakers that we were going to have at the conference. And then what we did was set up an 8-month webinar series, which at the time we thought was complete overkill. You know, like why on earth would we need to do 8 months of this? And in reality, you know, that kind of ended up being the right decision, as who knows how long this is going to last. So we're still able to engage with our customers and hopefully still provide students with great job opportunities in Milwaukee. But the way in which we engage with the corporates has been now completely virtual. So we're experimenting with like breakout rooms and all these different types of digital formats. And we actually tried a hybrid event last week, which turned out quite well. We did social distancing and all of that, but it wasn't quite the same. So we're willing to experiment, but we're almost all virtual now.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you guys see it as kind of like a positive sign. I think I've talked to many of you before, and you all have mentioned that you know, depending on which geographic region you're in, it's definitely a difference in the opportunities that are offered to you or even available to you. So what do you all think about that going forward? Like, do you think you'll just double down on like virtual events and keep doing this, let's say even after COVID, just because maybe it levels the playing field? I know many of you have kind of like spoke about these ideas before.
Yeah, I can speak on this a little bit. I don't know if we will go completely virtual after COVID. Like if the ability to be in person is there, I think that the prospect of having actual large events or hackathons in person, like Alex said, has a lot of value for actually building talent pipelines. But you know, given everyone is stuck online, we definitely have a lot of bandwidth to actually take advantage of that. And one thing that I've noticed in the past week, interacting with a lot of different professors, is that there seems to be a lot of pressure internally for these faculty members to themselves continue to look at how they can prepare students for this new post-COVID economy. And a lot of them are now much more open to the idea of working with distributed ledger technology. You know, it's not really because of any shift in the technology or sentiment regarding how it can be applied, rather just kind of almost a desperation for some sort of lifeline to grab onto. And that's been kind of a real turning point, it feels like. So.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have any interesting things just happening like on their campus or in their region that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I can speak to what our organization has done thus far. And it's been kind of interesting because we expected to not have as many kids come out to our booths at the career fair, the student organization fairs, and to our meetings. But we actually found the opposite happen. Maybe it's because COVID has forced people inside, and so they're looking for ways to explore, but we've gotten way more students than usual who are interested. And not even that, we actually held a discussion the other week, and there was a lot more participation, because I think that people are just, they're more comfortable behind a screen and in the chat function and stuff. So things like that were popping. People were putting into new ideas and collaborating and arguing, and so it made for a really nice thing. So I don't know if other people have you know, seen that, or maybe that's just us, but it's been kind of a, you know, a glimmering light in light of COVID.
Yeah, it's interesting to, you know, get your all's perspective, because you all are on the ground running your student orgs and kind of know the different environments. But even looking forward to the future, what are some of the future plans for the Midwest Blockchain Consortium? I know you all have done a ton of events in the past. You have some interesting initiatives planned, but why did you all decide to start a nonprofit or turn it into more so official nonprofit? And what's sort of been that journey for everyone involved?
Yeah, I can go for this one. So it's been really interesting, just going through the months trying to figure out the right structure for the organization. And I think it really just made sense at the end of the day that our number one focus should be around the students themselves, because I think each of our individual clubs could definitely integrate with the students at a ground level, but I think there's certain limitations that clubs have that having a nonprofit kind of bring it all together really would help out. And so specifically with that, it's the ability to put on larger scale events cross campus. And so something we really want to do is work together with students from different backgrounds, from different abilities, different skill sets. Because a lot of times you're limited at a club level, and sometimes you're limited with the amount of interest you have specifically at your school. But there's other schools out there, there's other students out there that want to get involved that just kind of need that push or that extra opportunity to kind of get involved. And so we kind of structured around a nonprofit because it really just at the end of the day kind of made sense for trying to help the students in general. I think there's a really great ability to do that, specifically with organizations and companies giving some of their extra money to a cause that really helps students to get into the job market. And hopefully we'll kind of get in this a little bit, but it's not the easiest thing coming out of school and trying to find a blockchain startup that you can really start to be involved with out of the gate. I definitely experienced this. I know Alec experienced this. There's definitely others out there, but specifically like in the Midwest, it's not easy to come by a lot of these opportunities. And so trying to really build up the students themselves and set them at a really like a higher bar, a higher level playing field with those of the coasts, for example. Trying to really stand out as an organization, as members of the organization. I think it will help students get that extra opportunity and get that thing that they're really looking for out of school.
Yeah, I was really excited to hear that you all are putting an emphasis on, helping students get jobs, not only make them aware for prospective jobs, but also like really get them prepared with the new skills you need for this technology. Because I think a lot of it is at the university level. The universities are just not up to speed, and they haven't. There's not really good documentation out there at the university level, I think, on how to work with like open source technology or all of these emerging technologies. So I know all of you run different student orgs, and some of you have graduated. Some of you are still helping to grow the orgs at your university. What do you all think is the barrier to adoption? You can kind of answer in the way of like maybe what you thought the barrier was first when you started your org, and maybe what you think it is now, or even like from the experience you all have going through starting the orgs at your university. I'm sure some of them there've been pushback. I know Adam always talks about that, some struggles there. So what do you all think is the barrier to adoption right now? And then like we can kind of talk about some of the activity in the space and like what you all think about DeFi in a bit. But wanted to get your thoughts on this first.
I mean, I can kind of start off. I've been saying it and I'm going to keep preaching it. I think they got to fix this bureaucratic issue. Taking 3-4 semesters just to launch a club, just because it's about, just because it's tied to Bitcoin, it's kind of ridiculous. I was like literally told verbatim, if you start this club, do not shill Bitcoin at all, because that thing is a scam, right? So I think once that narrative changes, in the departments, at every single university, and it's slowly happening, you can tell, as like mainstream, like these, terms are starting to become a lot more normal. So I think we'll be there. I don't think people will go through the struggles that like we had to go through early on 2, 3, 4 years ago. But other than that, I think the other barrier to entry is all of a sudden crypto has gone from, oh, let's learn about Bitcoin to, if I want to learn what the newest DeFi token like YAM is or Wi-Fi, all of a sudden I need to learn about like decentralized exchanges. I need to learn how to do all these different swaps. And then above that, I need to learn what Ethereum is. And then before that, I need to learn what proof of stake is. But before that, I got to learn about what Bitcoin is and proof of work is, and then learn about what blockchain is. So all of a sudden now there's like an entire like cake and like all these layers that you have to dig through just to get to the top, like what everybody's talking about right now. Just to understand DeFi, you need to understand every single thing that led up to DeFi. And I think that is something that really scares people away, because everyone loves to make a quick buck. But then as soon as they see, oh, there's a million different things that I need to learn, it's like, nah, it's not worth it. It's not worth my time. And that's like the biggest barrier to this entire industry, I think. And I don't know if there's a solution to that.
I can add to that real fast. So I'm not going to speak to the university barriers. I'm just going to focus on kind of like the blockchain and the DeFi thing real fast. So I think we're in this like conundrum with open source development. And what I mean by that is, for example, like the Wi-Fi protocol, like it is an immaculate way to optimize yield if you trust the underlying protocols, right? So it actually takes out a lot of the complexity of having to understand the underlying dynamics. If you trust Aave, if you trust DYDX, if you trust Compound, in theory, you should trust the Wi-Fi token. You should trust the wiring protocol. But the thing is, the only way that these decentralized open source projects get assets deposited or get users is if they're radically decentralized. So if they're representing similar things to like Bitcoin or Ethereum, yeah, sure, Ethereum had a pre-mine, but it was not significant. Wi-Fi was in theory, a fair distribution of the tokens. But once you do a fair distribution, there's no leader to set a vision for the project. And as a result, it's like, hey, we got our fair distribution. Everyone just hangs onto their token, hoping for it to increase in value, and no one actually builds anything. So it's like user experience is the hurdle, but because the community prefers decentralization, I don't know if we're going to fix the user experience hurdle. And the alternative is a centralized approach with a leader, with an elegant user experience, but you're sacrificing a degree of trust to interact with that. So I think it all stems back to user experience, and the reason that hasn't improved is a lack of leadership due to decentralization.
Yeah, that's a unique perspective, because I think everyone I mostly talk to always, of course, education is a huge barrier, but I definitely think that the way some of these protocols are designed, they might even be intentionally designed for it to be difficult, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the value, I think sometimes is from maybe managing your own keys and different things like that. But then if the majority of the people, if it just becomes unusable, I'm sure you all have tried to use these new decentralized finance protocols, and it literally looks like Windows 19, like whatever, right? So maybe that's where we are in the state of things. However, I think it's interesting that although the user interfaces haven't really progressed as far as maybe we'd like, it's like the underlying protocols, there is a lot of innovation happening there. I wanted to kind of segue into a question. Do you all think that the mergers and acquisitions happening in the space, or even when you see something like MicroStrategy purchasing $250 million of Bitcoin, because you all interact with a lot of enterprises, how does this kind of change any of your approaches? And do you think some of these mergers and acquisitions will actually lead to benefits for users? Or I'll leave you guys with this thought, right? Like I just heard that Consensus bought back Quorum from JP Morgan, but I also heard that JP Morgan invested in Consensus. So some interesting things happening in the industry world. Don't really know what's going on.
I could speak to the Consensus thing real fast, then I'll pass it off to someone else. I think that also is a leadership issue. So JP Morgan has a bunch of unbelievably talented and insightful analysts that are used to traditional finance. Now they're competing in an arena that is not familiar to their background. So what they did was they invested in Consensus, and then Consensus bought Quorum. So in reality, JP Morgan still owns Quorum through their stake in Consensus, but now Consensus leads the project. They have the correct leader, and JP Morgan is insightful enough to realize that they didn't have the technical competency or view of the future necessary to deliver such an innovative product. And they thought that Consensus did. So that's my opinion of the deal, but I'll pass it off to other people.
I mean, that is true, but do you think it's a problem that JP Morgan, because Consensus is one of the biggest, builders on the Ethereum platform, right? Because that's what they are. They're a venture studio on the Ethereum platform. So with that much sway, do you think JP Morgan making an investment into Consensus is going to be a problem going into the future?
Oh, like their
influence, right? Yeah, because that's ultimately what they're going to have, right? $50 million is going to buy you something, isn't it?
Well, my thought is, and I don't work at Consensus, but they're taking the bet that there's going to be a regulated happy medium for crypto. Like, they are the crypto bank type protocol. Sure, they have MetaMask, but they just switched that license from open to proprietary. So their future vision is not radically decentralized. It is a happy medium, I think. From what I've seen, it's like a happy medium amongst like crypto bank and traditional finance, but leveraging the back end benefits of blockchain instead of this like no KYC version that I'm frankly stoked on.
Yeah, I actually think that there's going to be it's almost like a scramble for talent at the industry level, at the corporate level. It's like, we just heard of Blockfolio getting bought out for 150 million. And I remember Jack was saying, like, that's a project that anybody could build, right? It's just like a regular data aggregator platform. Anybody can build that, but it's the users that they have that's the value right there, right? And I think just moving forward, we'll begin to see a lot more acquisitions that aren't crypto native. So not a crypto company buying a crypto company. And I just think it's too big to fail at this point. I guess you can literally classify Bitcoin crypto as too big to fail.
I'm gonna save that quote from this talk because everyone always says like banks are too big to fail, and I think there's no reason why you couldn't apply similar ideology to crypto, because it is increasing in importance and maybe even reliance of where it's used in the world. Back to this acquisition talk, because I think that you all are going to have some different viewpoints here. What do you all think when you see an acquisition of a DeFi protocol or something being decentralized, but another company investing in it or acquiring in it? Like, what does that really mean? Do you think that going forward, even, our whole theme right now is disrupting the system? Do you think that companies are taking the proper approach by acquiring a stake in the protocols, right? Like DeFi governance protocols. Everyone's been talking about this whole craze where you're not just owning tokens with the idea of appreciation, but you actually have ownership of a protocol. Like you can decide the future votes and so on. But when you look at these acquisitions of like decentralized exchanges and these coins being launched, what is your reaction to that? You think it's similar to 2017, or you think this time is different and it is actually a good thing? I don't think it's a good thing what's happening right now. I think there needs to be a lot more auditing, and things are being built in a day that don't even have the proper security.
I think it's literally worse than 2017. Like it's pretty bad. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've heard like Vitalik himself say that liquidity mining is not a sustainable trend, but to the point of companies investing and holding parts or large parts specifically of protocols, I think that in and of itself is not only not a bad thing, but probably a good thing. These crypto projects like Ethereum and Bitcoin, and you could go so far as to say just like normal open source stuff, Linux, for instance, normally projects that don't have some sort of organized and centralized backing will eventually not have anyone to maintain that source code, and that becomes a huge problem for the users. So when you have an actual organization that is A, solely invested in making money, and B, the way it makes money is to keep this protocol running, that to a degree can guarantee that it will continue to run in the future. Now, obviously there are opportunities for the incentives to be corrupt, and I think that's the point of actually auditing all this different stuff. You know, that definitely needs to happen, but I think that companies entering by themselves is definitely something to kind of celebrate and encourage.
I'd like to point out real fast a difference between the 2017 ICO craze and this kind of like pump that's been happening because of DeFi. And the key difference is in 2017, people were dumping $50 million into a white paper. Today, people are dumping 50, 100, 500 million into a protocol that provides them immense value. If it didn't, they'd pull their capital out. I just see this radical difference in utility in 2020 versus 2017. These things are actually working like very well. So that's the difference that I see. I think it's a positive for the space just because these projects are actually working.
Yep, they're working till they don't. They're working till they don't, I guess. That's the idea here. I think a lot of these projects are interesting, providing value, and a lot of it is just at the experimentation level. And I'm really excited to see more of that, even at the university level with students, just like building more things out, trying more things out. I think the university environment provides a good sandbox where you can sort of mess up or you know, keep going. Whereas when after university you break into the industry, then things get serious, or they're supposed to get serious. To kind of close things out, you all can give your own thoughts, or you guys can discuss. Like our last conference was about kind of reimagining like how this year might go. We didn't really know at that point, you know, how long the whole COVID situation would last or what it would affect. I think now it's clear that it's actually affecting a lot of real world use cases. I wanted to ask you all, so since then, about 3 months ago, we've actually seen the failures of a lot of the current structures in our society, you know, be it money, you know, they're printing a lot of money, or even be it education, right? A lot of talk about, you know, if we can just have conversations like this, or you all are attending even virtual classes, what is the real value being provided, or does that need some level of disruption? So to kind of close things off, what are some use cases or even opportunities do you think that crypto or blockchain can bring to disrupting the system and actually changing even ever so slightly how things work? So basically, what use cases are you all interested in, to close off? You can name like one or two that you think has the highest potential for people basically using it, or something to convince people out there to use it, like to get away from traditional legacy systems, basically.
Yeah, so I think to the point of parts of our society failing, I don't think that blockchain or any sort of emerging technology for that matter can completely stop that in the face of some of the headwinds that we're currently dealing with. But one application that people aren't even really going to choose to use, but it's still going to pop up, would be the advent of FAA automation of how drones are moving through a blockchain registry to digitally identify all of these different, potentially hundreds of thousands, millions of drones that are flying all over these different corridors and cities and beyond to deliver packages or any other application. This is just going to kind of happen because corporations are looking to cut the amount of money they're spending on shipping. And blockchain is just going to run in the back end of that without kind of any sort of input from the user again. So when that happens and people kind of realize, oh, wait, I've been using blockchain in a kind of indirect way for the past year, that can definitely kind of shift public sentiment, I bet. You know, definitely a prediction though.
I'll comment real fast. I'm just extremely less bullish on the idea of distributed ledger tech than I used to be. I used to be super excited about healthcare solutions, key management type solutions, not just like private key management, but just like entering buildings, things like that, type of immutable proof that people were there type things. And I'm realizing now that at least my opinion has changed, that the type of security and decentralization necessary to call yourself a blockchain is probably only going to be applicable to monetary applications. And in light of that, the reality is today that price inflation is doubling. So now the Fed publicly stated for the first time ever, they're going to target 4% inflation for prices. And once you consider the money printing, which is currency inflation, we have an effective inflation rate of nearly 30%. So that means in 3 years, your buying power is cut in half. That is the biggest problem that anyone in college or freshly graduating is facing, but it's never talked about. And I truly don't see any other way to protect yourself against that risk due to the fact that the United States dollar is the global reserve currency. I don't know how else you can protect yourself besides buying a little bit of Bitcoin or capturing some insane return, maybe in DeFi. Maybe that's just for degenerates that like gambling. We don't know yet. But at the end of the day, I seriously haven't seen an application that could beat the inflation, the irresponsibility of the US government besides Bitcoin. So I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I'm stoked to see what happens with Ethereum, but yeah, that's just kind of my opinion's changed a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with Alec. That's what I was going to mention. I think the hedge against inflation is probably the best use case, right? And I think that's like what a lot of people are going to be attracted to. You saw MicroStrategy, I think it was 250 million right into the reserve assets. And then soon after, I think like 2 or 3 other companies followed, putting like almost 30-40% of their reserve assets all into Bitcoin. So I think we'll see more and more of that. And, you know, as there's this one little saying that goes on Twitter is when the music stops, there won't be enough chairs, only 21 million Bitcoin. So I think it's going to be interesting times coming.
Cool. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I can kind of wrap us up here, kind of tie it back to MBC again. But yeah, something we're kind of really excited about moving forward is the ability to not only start to put on these virtual events again, obviously going for virtual blockchain conference round 2. We're expecting that to be bigger, better. It's going to be free. And then it's also going to be open to donations as well. And it's obviously going to support students. So that's going to be really exciting. And that will probably be coming most likely in the winter or early next year. And then past that, we are, you know, obviously looking to connect more with partners. And so specifically partners with us is someone that, one, really wants this, you know, top level talent from these universities. We're currently partnered with 7, and we're looking to partner with even more in the Midwest. And so it's going to be a lot of, you know, looking for what strategic university clubs or universities can we work with, can we get members from, and really continue to build them up. And then also working to, you know, build out our advisory board as well. You know, we're partnering with people like Global Blockchain Business Council as a strategic advisor. So that's definitely really exciting to kind of work through. And then, you know, from there, it's, you know, how can we build up these students with the events that we create. And so we're going to be looking for a lot of more, educational events and recruiting events from that. So yeah, really exciting and happy that, we're all kind of figuring out this structure together, and soon enough we'll be a 501c3 and we'll be off the races.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. Thank you all for taking the time to join us on this interview. I'm glad to have you all back as well from the Midwest Blockchain Consortium, and really excited to keep in touch with you and see where you guys are maybe at the next REIMAGINE conference. Thank you all, and enjoy tuning back in to another segment of REIMAGINE 2020. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Roshan.